The afternoon sun cast warm rays across Central Park, making the duck pond sparkle like scattered diamonds. Near the water's edge, a small girl sat alone on a wooden bench, her legs swinging back and forth. One leg was flesh and bone, moving naturally with each swing. The other was a marvel of modern science, a sleek, white prosthetic that whirred softly with each movement. 8-year-old Amy didn't mind being alone. She liked watching the ducks waddle around, searching for breadcrumbs left by other park visitors. Her prosthetic leg never bothered her either. It was just another part of who she was, like her curly brown hair or her bright green eyes. Not far away, her mother sat at a park table covered with papers and a laptop. Dr. Rose Thompson looked up every few minutes to check on her daughter, a proud smile crossing her face each time. She was supposed to be reviewing research papers, but she kept getting distracted by Amy's quiet joy at feeding the ducks. "Look, Mom," Amy called out, pointing at a baby duck that had wandered closer than the others. "This one's braver than his friends." "That's wonderful, sweetie," Dr. Thompson replied, pushing her glasses up her nose. "Just remember not to chase them." The park was peaceful that day. A light breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the sweet smell of blooming flowers. Other families walked along the paths or played on the grass, enjoying the perfect weather. Some people jogged past, and a few elderly couples sat on benches, watching the world go by. But there was something else in the park that day, something nobody could see. High up in a nearby tree, hidden by technology far beyond human understanding, someone was watching. Ambassador Kurt of the Galactic Council shifted their massive invisible form, making the branch bend ever so slightly. Their compound eyes took in everything, especially focusing on the little girl with the prosthetic leg. The ambassador had been observing Earth's parks for weeks now, studying how humans spent their free time. It was part of their mission to understand if Earth was ready for more advanced alien technology. So far, they had seen many touching moments. Parents teaching children to ride bikes, strangers helping each other, and communities coming together to enjoy nature. Amy stood up from her bench, carefully balancing on both legs. Her prosthetic adjusted automatically, helping her stay steady as she took a few steps closer to the water. She reached into her small paper bag and pulled out more breadcrumbs, tossing them gently toward the ducks. "Not too close to the water, Amy," her mother called out, more out of habit than worry. She knew the prosthetic was waterproof. She had helped design it after all. But mothers worry, no matter how safe their children are. The invisible ambassador watched with growing interest. They had seen many humans with prosthetic limbs during their observation, but this child moved with unusual grace. The technology in her leg was more advanced than typical Earth prosthetics. Not alien technology, but impressively close. More ducks gathered around Amy, making her giggle. The sound carried across the park, pure and happy. Even some nearby squirrels paused their endless search for food to watch the scene. The afternoon sun made Amy's prosthetic leg shine, but nobody in the park seemed to give it a second look. To them, she was just another child enjoying a beautiful day. What nobody knew, not Amy, not her mother, not even the ducks, was that this peaceful scene was about to change. 2 police officers were walking down the path, heading straight toward the duck pond. Their faces wore the hard expressions of people who had decided to make someone else's day difficult. Ambassador Kurt's antennae twitched beneath their cloaking field. Their species had evolved as protectors of the young, and something in those officers' walk set off ancient warning signals in their brain. They adjusted their position slightly, making sure their recording devices had a clear view of whatever was about to happen. The stage was set. The warm, peaceful afternoon was about to become something very different. But that's how it often goes. The biggest moments in history can start on the most ordinary of days, in the most ordinary of places. Officers Hayes and Miller walked with heavy steps down the park path. They were bored with their usual patrol and looking for something, anything, to make their day more interesting. Officer Hayes was tall and thin, while Officer Miller was shorter and had a round face that would have looked friendly if he wasn't frowning all the time. Look at that. Officer Hayes nudged his partner, pointing at Amy by the duck pond. What's that thing on her leg? Both officers had been listening to too many anti-alien radio shows lately. Every day, they heard stories about hidden aliens and their secret technology. These stories had filled their heads with wrong ideas, making them see dangers that weren't real. Let's check it out, Officer Miller said, changing direction toward the duck pond. The ducks scattered as the officers approached, sensing the tension in their heavy footsteps. Amy looked up at the approaching officers, her smile fading a little. She had been taught that police officers were supposed to help people, but something about their faces made her nervous. She held her paper bag of breadcrumbs closer to her chest. "Hey, kid," Officer Hayes said in a loud voice that made several ducks fly away. "What's that on your leg?" It's my prosthetic leg," Amy answered quietly, taking a small step back. "I was born with a problem in my leg, so I needed to walk." Officer Miller moved closer, his hand resting on his belt in a way that tried to look important. "That doesn't look like any prosthetic I've ever seen. Looks more like alien tech to me. Where'd you get it?" Amy's lower lip trembled. "The doctors gave it to me. My mom helped make it. She's right over there." She pointed toward her mother, but Officer Hayes cut her off. "A likely story," he sneered. "This is a normal park for normal people. We can't have suspicious technology around here. It could be dangerous." Tears started forming in Amy's eyes. She had dealt with curious questions about her leg before, but no one had ever been this mean about it. The officers' shadows fell over her, making her feel small and scared. "Maybe we should take you down to the station," Officer Miller said, trying to sound official. "We need to check if that thing is registered. Could be illegal alien tech." From their hidden perch in the tree, Ambassador Kurt watched with growing anger. Their species had strict rules about not interfering with local planets, but seeing adults bully a child made their protective instincts flare up. Their massive claws dug into the tree branch, leaving marks that nobody would notice until much later. I want my mom," Amy said, her voice shaking. A few tears rolled down her cheeks. "Oh, we'll talk to your mom too," Officer Hayes said. "Probably giving alien technology to kids. That's got to be illegal." The officers didn't notice Dr. Thompson was already on her way over. They also didn't notice how the air seemed to shimmer strangely around the tree above them, or how the birds had gone quiet. They were too busy trying to scare a little girl to notice anything else. "What do you think, Miller?" Officer Hayes asked his partner. "Should we call for backup? Could be a whole alien conspiracy right here in the park." Officer Miller puffed up his chest. "Yeah, better safe than sorry. Can't have alien tech just sitting around in public." Amy was crying openly now, her small hands clutching her paper bag so tight it was starting to tear. The remaining ducks had all fled to the safety of the pond, leaving her alone with the two officers. But she wasn't really alone. Her mother was almost there, walking quickly across the grass. And high above, an invisible alien diplomat was recording everything, their compound eyes taking in every detail of the officers' cruel behavior. The peaceful afternoon had turned dark, but neither officer realized they were about to learn a very important lesson about judging others. They had no idea that their small-minded bullying was being watched not just by Earth, but by the entire Galactic Council. Ambassador Crit had seen enough. Their massive body, nearly 9 feet tall when standing, shifted on the tree branch. Though still invisible, the movement made leaves rustle in a way that didn't match the gentle breeze. The officers below were too focused on frightening a child to notice these strange signs. The ambassador's species had evolved from ancient creatures that protected their young at any cost. Watching these officers bully a small child went against everything in their genetic code. Their 4-fingered hands, each finger tipped with retractable claws, gripped the branch tighter. The wood creaked softly under the pressure. Through compound eyes that could see in 12 different light spectrums, Cret watched Dr. Thompson hurrying toward her daughter. The ambassador's recording devices caught everything. The mother's worried face, Amy's tears, and the officer's cruel smiles. All of this was being transmitted live to the Galactic Council's main chamber, where representatives from 1,000 worlds watched in silence. The invisible alien scales shifted colors beneath the cloaking field, moving from calm blue to angry red. They had spent weeks studying Earth's parks, watching humans at their most relaxed and natural. They had seen countless acts of kindness, children sharing toys, strangers helping lost dogs find their homes, old people feeding birds, and young couples falling in love. But this was different. The ambassador's antennae twitched as they picked up Amy's quiet sobs. Their species could sense emotions through sound, and the child's fear and confusion hit them like physical pain. Crit's third heart began beating faster, a sign of rising protective instincts that had evolved over millions of years. High above Earth, in the Galactic Council's chamber, thousands of alien representatives leaned forward in their seats. Many of them had voted against sharing advanced medical technology with Earth, claiming humans weren't ready. Others, led by Crit, had argued that humans deserved a chance. Now this small scene in a park would help decide humanity's future. Below, Officer Hayes reached for his radio, probably to call for backup. He still hadn't noticed Amy's mother approaching, or the strange way the shadows seemed to move wrong around the tree above him. The officer's hand never reached the radio. A small gray squirrel, braver or more curious than its friends, crept along a branch near Crit. It could sense something big was there, even if it couldn't see it. The squirrel's tiny nose twitched as it tried to understand what it was sensing. Suddenly, it caught a glimpse through a slight flaw in the cloaking field. A flash of iridescent scales, a glimpse of huge compound eyes. The squirrel froze, then fled in terror, chattering loudly. This time, Officer Miller noticed. He looked up, confused by the squirrel's panic. For just a second, he thought he saw something in the tree. Something big, something impossible. He blinked and it was gone, hidden again behind advanced alien technology. But that brief moment of doubt made him pause, his hand moving away from his weapon belt. Crit's third heart had started beating in time with Amy's crying. On their homeworld, such distress from a child would have caused every adult within hearing range to rush to help. The ambassador's claws extended and retracted, fighting ancient instincts to protect. But they had to wait, had to watch, had to record. Because this moment wasn't just about one child and two cruel officers. This was about Earth's future, about humanity's readiness to join the galactic community, about whether humans deserved access to technology that could help millions of their sick and injured. Dr. Thompson was almost there now, her face set in a mother's fierce determination to protect her child. She had no idea that she wasn't the only protective force approaching. Above her, Ambassador Crit's cloaking field began to flicker slightly, their control wavering as emotion fought with duty. The time for watching was almost over. Soon, very soon, these officers would learn that the universe was much bigger, much stranger, and much less tolerant of bullies than they had imagined. The silent observer was about to break their silence, and Earth would never be quite the same. "Step away from my daughter." Dr. Thompson's voice cut through the air like a knife. She walked quickly toward the officers, her lab coat fluttering behind her. Her usual calm face now showed the kind of anger only a mother can feel. Officer Hayes turned around slowly, keeping his hand near his belt. "Ma'am, we're conducting an official investigation. Please stay back." Amy ran to her mother as fast as her prosthetic leg would allow. Dr. Thompson wrapped one arm around her daughter while staring down both officers. Despite being shorter than them, she somehow seemed to tower over the two men. "Investigation," she said, her voice cold. "You mean harassing a disabled child? Is this what our police force has become?" Officer Miller puffed up his chest. "That's not a normal prosthetic. We have reason to believe it's alien technology. You'll need to come with us to answer some questions." Above them, Ambassador Crit's cloaking field flickered again. The air around the tree shimmered like heat waves on a hot road. A bird flying past suddenly changed direction, as if it had bumped into something invisible. Alien technology. Dr. Thompson almost laughed, but there was no humor in her voice. That prosthetic was designed and built right here on Earth. At Thompson Medical Research, my company. Perhaps you've heard of it. Both officers froze. Everyone knew about Thompson Medical Research. It was the biggest medical technology company in the city. But Officer Hayes wasn't ready to back down. You expect us to believe you're Dr. Thompson? The Dr. Thompson. He sneered. Pretty convenient. Next you'll tell us you're the president. Amy clutched her mother's coat tighter. Mom, they said I'm not normal. That I shouldn't be in a normal park. Dr. Thompson's eyes flashed with new anger. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her company ID card. Officer Hayes. Yes, I can read your name tag. I am exactly who I say I am. And you have just made a very serious mistake. Officer Miller looked nervous now, but his partner wasn't giving up. ID could be fake. And that doesn't explain why that leg looks like something from a sci-fi movie. We're taking you both in for questioning. No, you're not, Dr. Thompson said firmly. You're going to apologize to my daughter, and then you're going to leave. And tomorrow, I'm filing a formal complaint with your department. Is that a threat? Officer Hayes took a step forward, trying to look intimidating. The air around them had grown strangely still. The ducks in the pond had stopped moving. Even the leaves in the trees seemed frozen. Something was about to happen. Mom, Amy whispered, pointing up at the tree. Why is the air moving funny up there? Both officers looked up. This time, they both saw it. A shimmer in the air, like a piece of the world had been replaced with rippling water. Something was there. Something big. This is your last warning, Dr. Thompson said, not noticing the disturbance above. Step away from us now. Officer Hayes reached for his radio again. That's it. You're both under arrest for possessing illegal technology and threatening an officer. That was the moment Ambassador Critt decided enough was enough. Their species had strict rules about interference, but they also had even stricter rules about protecting children. The choice was easy. The air above the group began to ripple more violently. A low humming filled the air, making everyone's teeth vibrate slightly. Amy pressed closer to her mother. The officers took a step back, their hands now shaking as they reached for their weapons. No one in the park that day would ever forget what happened next. The invisible observer was about to become very, very visible. And two small-minded officers were about to learn just how wrong they had been about aliens and their technology. The air twisted and warped, like someone was pulling apart an invisible curtain. A soft blue light began to shine from nowhere, casting strange shadows on the ground. Then, with a sound like gentle thunder, Ambassador Critt appeared. 9 feet of iridescent scales and compound eyes towered over the group. The alien's 4 arms unfolded slowly, each hand tipped with retractable claws that gleamed in the sunlight. Their scales shifted colors like oil on water, moving from deep blue to bright purple. Officer Hayes screamed. Officer Miller fell backwards, landing hard on the ground. Their hands shook too much to reach their weapons. Dr. Thompson stepped in front of Amy, protecting her daughter out of instinct. But Amy wasn't scared. She looked up at the massive alien with wonder in her eyes. Mom, she whispered, they're beautiful. Critt's head tilted slightly, compound eyes focusing on the child. When they spoke, their voice was surprisingly gentle, like wind chimes in a soft breeze. Thank you, young one, the ambassador said. You are the first human child I have spoken to directly. The officers tried to crawl backward, but Critt raised one hand. Stay where you are, officers. We have much to discuss. We? Officer Hayes squeaked. Critt nodded, and suddenly the air was filled with floating screens made of light. On each screen, alien faces watched. Some had tentacles, others had fur. Some didn't look like faces at all. The entire Galactic Council was watching. I am Ambassador Critt, the alien announced. head of the Earth Relations Committee of the Galactic Council. We have been studying your parks to understand how humans behave when they are relaxed and natural. Officer Miller had gone very pale. The Galactic Council. Yes, Kurt continued. We were deciding whether Earth was ready to receive our advanced medical technology. Technology that could help millions of your people who need prosthetics and other medical aids. Dr. Thompson's eyes went wide with understanding. The messages we received at the research center. The strange technical documents. Yes, Dr. Thompson. Kurt turned their massive head toward her. We have been sending your company small pieces of our knowledge, testing to see how humans would use it. Your prosthetic designs for children showed us great promise. Amy looked down at her leg with new wonder. Mom, did you make my leg with alien help? Not alien technology, Kurt corrected gently. Your mother took our basic ideas and made them completely human. She proved that humanity could be trusted with advanced medical knowledge. The officers were still on the ground, their faces now red with shame. Officer Hayes tried to speak, but no words came out. But today, Kurt's voice grew harder. You two have shown the worst of humanity. Bullying a child, judging differences as dangerous, acting out of fear and ignorance. The screens floating in the air showed alien faces nodding in agreement. Some looked angry, others disappointed. However, Kurt continued, their scales shifting to a softer blue color. Your actions have also helped us make our final decision. Everyone held their breath, waiting. Even the ducks in the pond seemed to be listening. If this is how Earth's authorities treat their children, Kurt announced, then clearly you need our help even more than we thought. Not just with technology, but with understanding, with growing, with learning to be better. Amy stepped forward, no longer hiding behind her mother. She looked up at the massive alien without fear. Does this mean you're going to help more kids like me? Kurt's compound eyes sparkled, and their scales rippled with warm colors. They knelt down, bringing their massive head closer to Amy's level. Yes, small one. But first, they turned to look at the officers. I believe these men owe you an apology. And then, they're going to learn some very important lessons about the universe. The floating screens flickered with approval, and a new chapter in Earth's history quietly began in a simple park on an ordinary afternoon. The park had become very quiet. Even the usual city noises seemed far away. The floating screens of the Galactic Council cast strange, shifting lights over everyone's faces. Officer Hayes and Officer Miller were still on the ground, looking like they wished it would swallow them up. Stand up, Ambassador Kurt ordered, their voice firm but not unkind. Face the consequences of your actions with dignity, at least. The officers scrambled to their feet, their uniforms now dirty and grass-stained. Their badges, which they had been so proud of minutes ago, seemed to weigh heavily on their chests. What you have done today, Kurt continued, gesturing at the floating screens, has been broadcast live to every major world in the galaxy. Over 1,000 civilizations have watched 2 of Earth's law officers bully a child because of her medical device. One of the alien faces on the screen spoke up, its voice sounding like bubbles in water. Disgraceful. We should cancel all technology sharing with Earth immediately. No. Amy's voice surprised everyone. She stepped forward again, looking at the alien on the screen. Please don't punish everyone because 2 people were mean. Kurt's scales rippled with approval. The child shows wisdom that her elders lack. Perhaps she should teach our first class on xenocultural understanding. Class? Officer Miller asked weakly. Oh yes, Kurt said, their massive head turning to face the officers. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? Every moment of your cruelty has been recorded. It will be used in training programs across Earth to show exactly how not to behave. Dr. Thompson stepped forward. Ambassador, if I may, I have a suggestion. Speak, Dr. Thompson. You have proven yourself worthy of trust. These officers clearly need education about differences, both human and alien. What if they were assigned to work with our medical research team? They could see firsthand how our work helps people. The floating screens buzzed with discussion in various alien languages. Officer Hayes looked like he might faint. An excellent suggestion, Crit agreed. Officers Hayes and Miller, you are hereby reassigned to security detail at Thompson Medical Research Center, effective immediately. You will guard the new Galactic Medical Technology Exchange Program, after completing extensive sensitivity training, of course. But our jobs. Officer Miller started to protest. Are changing, Crit finished firmly. Just as Earth is changing. Just as you must change. Their compound eyes glittered. Unless you prefer, we show this recording to your police chief instead. Both officers shook their heads quickly. One of the alien faces on the screen spoke again, this one looking like a friendly cloud of sparkles. The council has voted. Earth will receive full access to our medical technology program, under Dr. Thompson's supervision. And these two officers will be the first humans to undergo our complete xenocultural training program. Amy tugged at Crit's lowest hand. The massive alien looked down, surprised. Yes, small one. Will you be staying? She asked. I want to learn about where you come from. Crit's scales shifted to warm, happy colors. I will be overseeing the program personally. Perhaps you would like to help teach others about accepting differences. Amy smiled brightly. I'd like that. Maybe Officer Hayes and Officer Miller can learn first. The two officers shifted uncomfortably, but nodded. There wasn't much else they could do with the entire Galactic Council watching. Then it settled, Crit announced. Dr. Thompson, expect our full technical database tomorrow. Officers, report to the research center at 8 a.m. sharp. Young Amy, they knelt down again. Thank you for showing us that humanity's future is brighter than its present. The floating screens began to fade away. But not before several alien representatives waved goodbye to Amy. She waved back, giggling. The officers stood awkwardly, not sure what to do next. Their day had started with a routine patrol and would end with them as part of galactic history, though perhaps not in the way anyone would want to be remembered. Well, Dr. Thompson said, checking her watch, since we're all going to be working together, why don't we get some ice cream and discuss the future? I believe the park vendor sells chocolate and vanilla. And sprinkles, Amy asked hopefully. And sprinkles, her mother agreed. I think today deserves sprinkles. 1 month had passed since the day in the park. Thompson Medical Research Center looked very different now. Alien technology mixed with human design in the halls, and the building had grown 3 new floors seemingly overnight. But the biggest changes weren't in the building. They were in the people. Officer Hayes stood at his new security post, watching doctors of different species walk past. His uniform was different now. Dark blue with the Galactic Council symbol next to his Earth police badge. He no longer flinched when a tall alien doctor nodded hello to him. Morning shift change, Officer Miller said, walking up to join his partner. He carried 2 cups of coffee, one for himself and one for Hayes. Did you finish the xenocultural homework Crit gave us? Yeah, Hayes nodded, taking his coffee. Never thought I'd be getting homework assignments from a 9-foot-tall alien, but here we are. Through the main doors, Amy walked in with her mother. Her prosthetic leg had been upgraded with new technology, moving so smoothly now that nobody could tell it wasn't real unless they looked very closely. She carried a small backpack full of drawings, part of her job as Junior Cultural Ambassador. Good morning, officers, Amy called out cheerfully. Both men smiled and waved. They had apologized to her properly after that first day, and she had forgiven them with the simple kindness that only children seem to have. Ready for today's class? She asked them. The officers nodded. Twice a week, they attended Amy's Understanding Differences class, where she taught other police officers about acceptance and kindness. Her classes had become so popular that there was now a waiting list. Dr. Thompson stopped to talk with the officers. Ambassador Kurt wants to see you both after your shift. Something about your progress reports. Hayes and Miller exchanged nervous looks. They still weren't completely comfortable around the massive alien, but they were learning. Last week, Crit had even praised Miller for helping a lost alien doctor find their way to the research lab. Suddenly, all the screens in the lobby lit up. Ambassador Crit's face appeared, their scales glowing with happy colors. "Attention, everyone," Crit announced. "The Galactic Council has just reviewed Earth's progress in our medical technology program. Thanks to Dr. Thompson's leadership and our new training programs, we are ahead of schedule." Everyone in the lobby stopped to listen. Some alien doctors waved their tentacles or appendages in excitement. But more importantly, Crit continued, "We have seen remarkable progress in human understanding and acceptance. Officer Hayes and Officer Miller, please report to my office immediately." The officers looked at each other worriedly, but Amy gave them a thumbs up. "Don't worry," she whispered. "Crit's scales are happy colors." In Crit's office, the ambassador towered over them. But their voice was friendly. "Officers, your progress has exceeded expectations. You've gone from being examples of humanity's worst traits to showing its best. The ability to learn, grow, and change." "Thank you, Ambassador," Hayes said, standing straighter. "We've learned a lot." "Indeed." Crit's compound eyes sparkled. "That's why you're being promoted. You'll be leading our new police training program. Starting next week, you'll teach other officers how to work with our alien visitors." Miller blinked in surprise. "Us? Teaching? Who better?" Crit asked. "You understand both the mistakes and how to correct them. Plus, young Amy speaks very highly of you both now." Back in the lobby, Amy sat drawing pictures with some alien children who had come with their parents. Her mother watched proudly while talking to doctors from 3 different planets about new medical technologies. The officers returned looking dazed but happy. They stopped by Amy's drawing table. "What are you drawing?" Hayes asked kindly. Amy held up her picture. It showed the park from that first day, but with a happy ending. Everyone smiling, aliens and humans together, and 2 police officers learning to be better. "It's for the classroom wall," she explained, "to show that anybody can change if they try." Outside the building, the city was changing too. Alien medical technology was helping thousands of people, and in the park where it all started, a small plaque had been placed near the duck pond. It read, "Here, on an ordinary day, humanity took its first step toward the stars, not through power or fear, but through learning, understanding, and the wisdom of a child."